His mercy and compassion be upon us forever and ever. Amen. Glory to Jesus Christ. Glory to Jesus Christ. Glory to Jesus Christ. As I was thinking about today and just what we should be meditating on for this feast of Hosanna, as I mentioned earlier, during this day in Jerusalem, we sing how the elders told the little children to, when Jesus comes, to throw stones. But the children, when they saw Jesus, dropped the stones, picked up palm leaves, and cried out, Hosanna, which means to save us, salvation. And I'm constantly, especially as now I'm having children in the house all the time, infants, children, I constantly look and I meditate on why Jesus is saying that these are the people that are worthy of the kingdom, these little children. And because we oftentimes look at children and we say they can be naughty and they can be difficult, but Jesus yet is saying, let them come to me. They are the ones most worthy of the kingdom. And on Hosanna we are praising the children for how they offer perfect praise. So what is it about them? And what we realize, and as we interact with the little ones, we can understand how pure and innocent they are. That their hearts are just pure. That they are innocent at this young little age, especially between 0 to 6, 7, 8 years, you can see it. I remember when we first had children, every parent came to me and said, I just enjoyed this time, 0 to 5, 0 to 6, it's the best time. And I'm here waking up all through, my wife wakes up more, but I'm waking up all through the night and changing the diapers and doing all that stuff. And I'm saying, I can't wait to finish this. But all the parents are telling me, no, this is the best time. And I can see it because you can see just this pure love that they have. That all they want to do is spend time. There's no conditions. There's no ulterior motives. They just want to spend time. And grandparents know this too. If you see the little children or anybody who's around nephews, nieces, you see this, you know how pure their love is. You can never hear of a child, a little infant, holding a grudge. They get mad. But within 5 minutes, they're over it. They reconcile, they love. We, on the other hand, right? We get mad and we can hold grudges. We can be deceitful. We can be double-sided in the way we live our life. We struggle with purity, right? But I think during this last year of the pandemic, as much as I've missed everybody, I feel the most for our little ones. I mean, of course, many people this past year, seniors have told me, Acha, in my whole life, I've never missed a Holy Week till last year. In my whole life. So you can imagine what that feels like. But for the little children, I feel the most pain because during this 0 to 6 years, these infant years, that's when they need to be in the church absorbing all of this. Absorbing the songs and the worship, what they see, what's going on in the altar, what they see, the processions, all of these things. You know, I really feel like the church fathers understood, the early church understood that this total experience of worship that is not just intellectual. You may say, oh, they can't read or they can't, but they're absorbing things. They're understanding things. They're connecting to things, right? Our attachment to service and to church didn't start at 14, 15. It probably started as a little child with our parents or grandparents bringing us to the church, sitting in their laps as they were singing and praying. And that really started it. And they've missed that. You know, it can be tough though, managing the kids, right? I always tell Coach Emma, bring the kids, bring them as much as you can, bring them in the front, And she says, everybody looks and it's hard and they have to chase after them. And she's like, it's easy for you to say because you're up there. I'm the one who has chased and I get it. But I feel like it's really important. This past Friday we had service and, our Ephraim was making a lot of noise. Not like same like today, but making a lot of noise. But it was funny because I got home. Now he's a little smarter. He's having logic. I got home. I said, Ephraim, you were a little loud today. He goes, you were loud. I said, Daddy, you were loud. Holy art thou, O God. He's saying, you were louder than me. And then he repeats what I said. Holy art thou, O God. I had to laugh, right? Because it's like, he's right, I was loud. I was saying something, but I was loud. I mean, so he's saying, why are you telling me why I'm getting loud, But so I've tried to take what God has said about the children and say, okay, instead of getting up, I get upset, I lose my patience, but maybe there's something there. For example, this past year, we were all at home last Palm Sunday, but I told all the children, throw the flowers at home, even when you see it on TV, just throw it, and so we did that. So the other side of that is, we have these nice roses on the, hold on. It's my Secret Service protection order. We have these nice roses over near our house, and on the side of our house. But guess what? We didn't have them all year, because every time a little rose starts to come, Ephraim runs for it. And he grabs it, and immediately what he wants to do? Hosanna! All through anytime, if he sees flowers, he goes for it. And I feel bad, because sometimes neighbors have these gardeners that come and do all these nice things, and I walk and he runs for it. Anytime I have to grab him, but that's what he wants to do. And I thought to myself, and of course the first instinct, get mad at him, get upset, right? But then I thought to myself, maybe he's onto something. Maybe God's telling me something there. Hosanna is not just once a year. As a matter of fact, Hosanna is something that we praise all the time. We say it in the Kalma, Hosanna in the highest. And I was even thinking, when we all hold the palm leaves now, we may think that this is just a remembrance of something that happened 2,000 years in Jerusalem. But that is not what the church says. The church prayers and everything says, this is actually a foreshadowing of the second coming. This is from the book of Revelation. John is in the island of Patmos, and he's having a vision of the heavenly worship that's going on for eternity, that we will all be a part of. And this is what he says in Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. I looked and I saw a great multitude, which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, Hosanna to God, who sits on the throne, to the Lamb. Salvation belongs to the Lord. That's from the book of Revelation. And in other words, what I'm saying is, we are not just doing something 2,000 years ago. We're preparing ourselves for the eternal worship when Christ comes and we all stand together as a united people before the Lord, worshiping the true King with our palm branches. And that's what I envision when I look out and see everybody. I'm not just thinking of 2,000 years ago, something small that happened in Jerusalem. I'm thinking of the heavenly Jerusalem and what we are. So I was thinking, maybe that's something that God was telling me. The other day, he was eating noodles. Anybody who has kids knows food can be messy time. I always take his shirt and everything off, because if I don't, his whole clothes will be messy every time. So he was eating noodles, and then when I looked away, he takes the noodles, and he throws it, and he says, Hosanna, with the noodles, with the food. You cook it, you get it all ready, and you want to at least eat that, But he throws it. Again, what is God telling me? And maybe he's telling me, when we throw these flowers, when we throw these things, maybe we're called, not just flowers, but everything God has given us, give it back to him. In a way, that's what we do in Qurbana. We take grain and grapes that God has given us, make wine and bread. We give it to God, and God gives it back to us as his body and blood. That's really what the communion with God is about. He gives us, we offer back to him. Not just flowers, not just praise. Everything we have in our life. Our children, offer to him. Everything that we can think, our whole selves, as a living sacrifice, as St. Paul says. So, I think about these things, and I think about if we start at that young age with our children, and we continue on teaching them as they get older, explaining things, discussing things, there's a great chance that they stay connected to their Lord throughout their life. There was an Achin who called me the other. We have conversations amongst a lot of different Achins, and we were talking. He was telling me, he was showing me a text of a kid who left the church. You know, and he was conversing with this child. He may be in college or post-college. Why did you leave the church? And they're going back. And he goes, Achan, I couldn't stand to be part of something that took so much of my parents' time, but it had no effect on their personal life. It took so much of my parents' time, maybe doing things in the church, always being in the church, all this stuff. But in the personal life in the home, there was no love, there was no forgiveness, there was no peace. And he's saying, why would I want to be part of that? And it made me to think, the children are ready to worship and to stay with the Lord. It is us that need to be the example and show. Even in our weakness. That's why I think confession is not for infants. The church doesn't tell infants to go confess. Even little young children. People of reason. People from middle school on, right? Just do confession. Why is that important? Because we are the ones that need to come before God and become pure. And acknowledge our faults. And be real and honest with our kids about our weaknesses. And how God is. And then struggle with that. Not just ignore it, right? And just keep coming to church without any evaluation of ourselves. That hypocrisy, that double life is what keeps kids away from church. But if we live lives of repentance, not that we're perfect, we make our mistakes, but there should at least be an acknowledgement. I should be doing better. A lot of times I'm asking forgiveness of my children. I tell them to apologize to each other when they hurt each other, ask forgiveness. But there are many times where I yell and I have to take a moment and I say, Mona, I'm sorry, forgive me. My anger, I had to correct you on something, but I shouldn't have yelled. I shouldn't have raised my voice. I could have done it in a more gentle way. Because I want him to know that I'm not perfect. Even the priest is not perfect. That he has mistakes too, and he's struggling too, and he has to go to confession too. And so maybe they'll understand. They don't have to be these perfect people. They can make mistakes, but know that their Lord is ready to receive them. Because he sees the potential of purity that they have in their life. I'll end with a quote by Pope Shenouda. He was a blessed memory. He was the Pope of the Coptic Orthodox Church. And this line always sticks with me in ministry that he said. He said, a church without a youth is a church without a future. A church without a youth is a church without a future. And that's something we have to always keep. I always say, and in seminary they said the same thing. If your church doesn't have babies crying, your church is dying. If your church doesn't have babies crying, your church is dying. Make sure you hear the babies crying in your church. A church without a youth is a church without a future. And then he says another part. A youth without a church is a youth without a future. And how many of our youth are growing up without the church? And we have a lot to do to influence that. To bring people and keep people in the love of Christ so that they don't just sing Hosanna as infants, but till their last breath they sing Hosanna in the highest. May all glory be to the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and always, forever and ever.